Hi, and welcome to Design. Today we're here with artist Arturo Sanchez. Hi, Art.
How's it going?
Good, good. So for those who aren't familiar with you, I'd like to give an introduction of who you are, what you do, and what your goals are with your artwork. So our first question, your Instagram description says believer, husband, artist. Can you briefly tell us what those three words mean to you?
The place there in order like that because I believe that the believer comes first. I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ, and my faith is the most important thing to me. Husband second, because I've tried my best to be the best husband I can. Growing up, I didn't really have too much of a role model of what that looked like, so that's one of the most important things to me, and trying to be the best that I can for my wife. And artist last because I feel like the other two things are way more important to me than being an artist, although I love to create and I love to share my art, so that's why I put them in that order.
That's great. So let's take a look at a couple of your past works and talk a bit about them. Maybe we could go into depth.
Sure.
So the first one, we're going to be looking on a screen. We'll pop it up for you guys, but we're looking at a billboard with two hands holding a heart in the city of Fresno.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe just go into a little bit about how this got started, where it is, and why you did what you did.
All right, so the billboard is located on O Street, right across from Rich's Bakery. If you take the 41 South and you exit on O Street, it's directly to the left. Basically, how it got started was the owner of the building wanted to paint over an existing billboard that had become an eyesore to the city, kind of. And he reached out through some things on Facebook, and a youth pastor actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think you'd be a nice fit for this. Why don't you check it out?" So I gave the gentleman a call. He explained to me that he has this love for restoring the city, and he wants to see, the city better than what it is. And we started talking, and I had this idea for just a picture of the city that is just a beautiful picture of it. So that's where it took off from. I showed him the initial sketch, and he was on board, and went ahead and knocked that out in a couple days.
So that explains sort of the framing, right? You wanted it to feel like a picture.
I wanted it to actually feel like hands holding a beautiful picture of the city. And I work with hands. I use hands in my work a lot, some of my other works, and it's just kind of this theme that I have going. Hands kind of help to restore, help out each other, and so I wanted to use that in there, and that was the image I created, and the owner was cool with it, so we just rocked it, man.
So how do you pick the colors? I notice you have this background that's sort of a turquoise, and then the purple, and then the yellow. Are those intentional colors?
Yeah, what I wanted to do was, the main focus of the heart was the sunset, so I wanted to make sure I used colors kind of true to like a sunset look, and those hot pinks in the clouds and stuff like that. And then for the background, I wanted to use a color that was more muted so that those colors really pop off of it. I'm thinking about going back and adding some more stuff to that background just to kind of mess with it. Kind of that artist mind. I always want to keep tinkering and keep messing with those things.
Especially the more you look at it, you want to just keep messing with it.
Yeah, looking at it right now, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go fix this and fix that. So that was the goal in that one. And then the frame, I've always liked filigree and kind of ornate framing, this old antique-y feel, so I wanted to go for something similar to that. It was pretty difficult to do that when I was up on a 15-foot scaffolding. That billboard is about 25 feet high, so it was pretty difficult to be up there with the wind, and I'm afraid of heights too, so I was up there and I was like, this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was a blast.
Good. Okay, Arturo, so this next piece, we have a hand, and we have all different colors of hands, browns, whites. Looks like you got a variety in there reaching out to this hand in the center of what looks like some geometric stained glass surrounding the hand that they're reaching out towards, and sort of a light element behind the hand. So tell us about the background of this piece, sort of where it's located, and what your thoughts were while creating it.
All right, so this piece is really cool. It's like really special to me. It's actually located on Mariposa and Hammond. If from the Fresno area, it's near the The Fresno Olive Post Office is right behind it. This used to be the old Goodwill building, and it's now the Word Community Church. I was the lead art instructor there from 2013 2015, and we worked with inner city kids and some of the kids from the poor neighborhoods in Fresno. We'd bust them in and teach them art, music, dance, and so with the art class, what we did is I had this idea for like doing this huge mural, and it was originally 4 panels, and this was the second of the 4 panels. And what we did is I had all the kids come out, and they actually painted the entire blue. That square is the entire underneath is all blue, and they painted it all by hand, rollers, paintbrush. I had them do it, and then I just laid all the drawings and all that stuff down. So the concept of the piece is mercy, and it's God's hand reaching down to all of us. And the stained glass is a broken sky, so it's kind of like all these different blues and stuff like that. And I really try to capture different shades and tones in the hands. And if you look really closely, I can't really see it on that picture, but there's actually kind of like a faint images of hands behind those hands.
I see them. Yeah, I see.
And then the black is actually a sea of like fingertips reaching up towards God's hand. So we try to create this depth with it, and the kids helped fill in some of those hands and some of the blue squares and stuff like that. So that one was really cool, man, and it was a blast to do that. That's probably one of the funnest murals I've done.
And now that you mentioned the filigree, I'm trying to see that.
Yeah. I try to use that, man.
It's sort of like your signature now. I mean, that's really neat. Okay, that's good. Next time I see filigree, I'm going to look for your signature on the bottom.
Yeah, well, I try to think of it as an actual like art piece hanging on a wall.
Right.
And all art pieces kind of are framed by something. So I try to frame what I'm doing with something, and almost like it's just hanging there, you know. So
how important is it for the community to be involved with your artwork?
It's pretty important, man, for the youth, for the community, because in the end, the community is what inspires me. I create my art because of the community, because of what I see, because of what moves me, and I'm just moved, man, by what I see and everything, and trying to create images or create artwork that may inspire or may bring hope to people. Interesting story, while I was painting this one, there was a gentleman who actually came up to me and was like, ended up giving his heart to Christ because of what we were painting out there. So it was really cool, because I've never experienced anything like that. You know, I wouldn't think that people would come to the knowledge of God through art or through any of that stuff, and that's what's happening in that area. And it was actually pretty cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, wow. Okay, so Arturo, this is a little further back, I'm assuming, from that previous image?
Yeah, this is the entire wall. So we talked about the first image to the left, and then the center is actually an old wooden cross with the Word Community Church logo on it, which is a sword, the Word of God, and a world, a globe, or I don't know what you call it, Earth, from a distance. So yeah, that's their logo. I centered it in the center of the cross, and then immediately to the right of that is a picture of Christ holding a kingdom, and the kingdom's kind of in his arms. He's kind of just holding it there, and it was the same thought process behind the first one went into the second one, and I had a blast creating that one, man. The kids helped paint the background on that one, and I just went ahead and did my thing all around it, and so we created that one. It's still unfinished. Some of the parts around the Jesus part, I haven't had time to get back out there and really finish the background behind him, but I plan on doing that within the next week or so.
So is this hand rollers and paint brushes, or is there spray paint on this?
Yeah, so the background, the big parts are hand rollers, paint brushes, and then for the detail and some of the shadowing, some of the color fading is spray paint. So I like to use spray paint in a lot of my stuff. It's quicker, it's easier, I'm more familiar with it, and it's fun. I just like to be out there spray painting stuff. So spray painting walls legally without getting in trouble, it's always fun. So
Sure, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one's a little different now. This one's more sort of vibrant. It looks like it has a lot of goo and brain, and so still some light elements and stuff. So, what is this? What are we looking at here?
All right, so this was a Fresno Idea Works did some cutouts, and they gave them to a bunch of different artists here in Fresno and around the valley, and each artist painted their own interpretation. You know, they were free to create whatever they wanted on there, any image they wanted, and it was for the catacombs thing they do downtown, kind of. So we did the art show. I was invited by a collective called Wise Fools, really good friends of mine. They invited me in. They were kind enough to invite me in, and this is my vision of that was the first thing that came to my mind when I thought of Fresno Idea Works, just the name. And I was like, oh, it's just an illuminated brain dripping with creativity and just shooting out. So that was my take on Fresno Idea Works and just being creative here in Fresno. And that's why I painted that. And I choose to use the same colors like that to really kind of bring people in. I like to use a lot of bright, vibrant colors to kind of just catch people's eyes, and then they kind of really, they're drawn in and they kind of look at what the image is and really think about it. So I enjoyed painting that one. We've done a few shows like that, and they've all been like super cool, man. Like I've had a blast doing those. It was really fun.
That's great. All right, so now this next one. This one's a little interesting too. I've seen lanterns before in some of your work, and I've also seen descriptions about lanterns. So first off, what is this background for this piece, and then also what is the importance of lanterns in your work?
So currently I'm enrolled at Clovis Community College, pursuing an art degree. This was my beginning painting class that I took with Stephen Dent. He's an amazing artist, an amazing professor. And really what it was, this was my final project for that art class. We were to work in a split complementary color scheme, which is just 3 colors. And I chose to use the blue, violet, yellow, and orange. I stayed in that. And so everything you see there is created from those 3 colors and white, a little bit of white. And the concept behind it was he approached us and he gave us this this task of creating an art piece that is a self-portrait without showing you. He wanted to see these different elements of who you are. So for me, faith is big. My faith is huge to me. And I've always had this kind of idea of painting this. So this was perfect for me. And I was like, oh, I'm going to knock this out, dude. Like, I'm just going to go 100% on it. So I had this idea of Psalm, I believe it's in Psalm 119, where it says, thy word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my pathway. And so I had this lamp, and I actually took the photos and worked from a photo reference, and I set the lamp on top of my Bible, which was handed down from my grandmother. And I set it, I lit it, took some pictures, and then I worked from there. And I actually added the sparrows on and the skull. The sparrows are kind of representational of me and my wife. And also a scripture that talks about, are we not worth more than the sparrows? I can't recall the scripture right now, right off the top of my head. And then the skull I threw in there to kind of share the mortality of us. You know, we're all human, and we're all going to, go away at some point. So it's kind of just a constant reminder. So it's kind of laid out as just this image for you to look at and really take it in. And I like to see other people's what they take from it or what they think it is, their interpretation of it. So it's pretty cool. And while I was actually giving my little speech in class about what this meant, one of the people in my class actually pointed out that the sparrow yelling at the other one must be your wife yelling at you. And I was like, no, it's probably me complaining about something. So it was pretty cool. I love to see stuff like that. So that one was really fun. That one's actually still up at the campus. So if you're ever there, you can go check it out in person. It's pretty big. I think it's 28 by 32. It's pretty big. All done in oil. This was some of my first oil paintings. So I had a blast doing that one, man.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Some of the things I see just right off the bat with that one is sort of the blue is sort of a really deep blue, sort of somber, and then you have this really vibrant light in the center that sort of brings a little bit of hope, I think, to that work, right?
Yeah, and that was the goal. I mean, to create something that gives an impression of hope, and it gives an impression of light and something lighting up the darkness. So that was the goal, and I'm glad that you see it. I mean,
Yeah,
so
no, it's
hopefully
great.
other people see it and they're inspired or they know.
Arturo, can you tell us about this skull now? What is this all about?
So the skull was my first oil painting, which I'm like super proud of. Again with Stephen Dent, and really what he wanted us to do was just do a real life study of the skeleton that they have in class, and he told us to choose one color, so that's all one color that we had to work from. It's called an indirect method of painting, where it's just layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. So I think that one took about 4 weeks, which is 8 classes, and I just chose the top of the skull because I just liked um, all the different patterns and cracks in the skull and all these different types of things going on up there. So I chose that, took a picture, and then I realized immediately after that I bit off way more than I could chew, and I was like, oh wow. So actually, Professor Dent helped me move through some of that stuff, and he helped me create these darks and really showed me what it was to add these different values and create these depths and
Contrast.
yeah, and contrast and all
Right.
these things and these shadows with just something as simple as just layering the paint on little by little. And what's funny about that is that I lost my patience about halfway through, and I was like, I don't even want to finish painting this painting. And I learned through that painting that just like in life, it takes time to be, you know, to just be patient with things and work through them, and not try to just scrap everything when it's not going your way. So that's what I kind of learned from that one. That's why that one's a little bit special to me too. It's kind of learning some life lessons through painting.
Yeah, developing your grit and
Yeah.
sort of, yep.
And just kind of pushing through things even when they're not going your way, and just seeing them through to the end. And the end result is always 100% better than what you thought it would be. So I'm happy with that one.
Okay, so this last one, it's a Aztec warrior. Looks like he's laying in the grass in maybe an Amazon forest. Then he has his lady with him,
Yeah.
right? So, okay, so what's the background here, and what was your process in creating the composition and choosing the subject matter?
Well, this one's pretty easy explanation. I was approached while I was painting the actual church murals by a gentleman. He said, "Hey, I own this restaurant. And I'd like a painting on it." So I went down there when I was free, and I talked to him, and he handed me this calendar. If you know anything about growing up in a Mexican household or the culture, there's always these crazy calendars that have like Aztec warriors painted on them, or his Aztec warrior holding his princess looking up to the heavens. And he actually had a calendar that had an image like this painted on it. And I told him, I said, "Hey, I'm all for the image, but I'm not going to copy this guy's work. Am I allowed to have some creative freedom?" And he was like, "Sure, as long as it's kind of similar." So I just kind of did my thing on it, and just painted what I thought it would look like, and made sure I try to capture some of those trees and stuff. And you can't really see it because of the shadow, but there's a mountain range in the background that's kind of lit up. And yeah, dude, I had a blast. I met a lot of people that were coming up and telling me how cool it was, and I was painting right next to the entrance of the restaurant while they're open for business. So it was pretty cool to have people walking in and out and commenting on it and stuff like that. And the owner was really happy with it when I was done, and I was pleasantly surprised with how it came out too. I kind of go in to all my paintings with not super high expectations. I just go in expecting to knock something out, and I'm always surprised at the end that it came out as good as it did or as cool as it looked. So that one was really cool. I had fun. I had a blast doing the bird, and that's all aerosol. I didn't use anything else other than spray paint on that. And yeah, I had fun doing that one. That one was really cool.
Awesome. So, where did you grow up, and when did you become interested in being an artist?
I grew up in Fresno. My whole life I've lived in Fresno. We kind of grew up in different areas, kind of lower income areas and stuff like that. And I spent the most of my childhood near First and McKinley area on Floridora. And for most of my childhood, it was pretty rough growing up. I went through some pretty rough times. Ended up growing up in a single parent household. And I started gravitating towards art because it was a way for me to express myself. All the things that I was going through as a child, I was kind of, the pain that I was going through, I couldn't really vocalize it to anybody. I didn't really have anybody to share that with. So I would kind of just create paintings and sketch and draw on anything I could get my hands on. And it just grew from there. It actually led me to get involved in the graffiti scene here, which didn't last very long. I wasn't too good at that, and also it was way too crazy for me. So, and I was, I didn't want to partake in any of that stuff or get arrested or anything like that. So I kind of left that alone. But I always kind of did it on my own, kind of sketchbooks and stuff, and kept doing letters and using those colors and stuff like that. So that's how it started, and really art just gave me a voice that I wouldn't have had at that time. I was dealing with a lot of things that were super difficult, and looking back, I understand that I was walking through those things. At the time, I didn't really understand them, and so art was really just an outlet for me to kind of get things off my chest.
Were there people sort of in your childhood that would begin to influence your artwork, people you looked up to that were artists themselves that got you interested in it?
Yeah, actually, through graffiti, I met one of my best friends. He's a really close friend of mine, Roy Luera, and he introduced me to more of the technical aspects of graffiti, more what they call piecing, stuff like that, and then from there it kind of blossomed into actual like artwork of drawing figures and doing stuff like that, which I had always kind of liked, and it just kind of gave me a stepping stone to get to that. And he's always been one of the biggest influences on me. He does tattoos now, and I still look up to him. We're both in our mid-30s, and I'm like, he's still way up there to me. So it's pretty cool to see him work and for us to work together and stuff like that. And actually, growing up in that neighborhood, the first time I picked up acrylic paint was actually a friend of mine. His mother did crafts, and she actually loaned me like 2 bottles of paint and a paintbrush, and I painted my first skateboard then. And that's something that's always near and dear to me because she took time to see something in me and say, hey, why don't you try using these? And that's really what started me doing canvases, skateboards, and different stuff like that. So yeah, that was a huge influence on me, and I'm thankful to God for her kindness and grace that she allowed me to use her materials to create. And so I think I still owe her like 2 tubes of paint and a couple paintbrushes. So I got to get that to her as soon as I can.
All right, so let's take a step back and talk more about your painting and the techniques you use. So what do you consider when you're creating a composition? Like, is it important for you to create center? Is it important for you to have vibrant colors? I know you'd mentioned you like grabbing people's attention with the colors. Yeah. Do you prefer one technique over the other as far as the medium you use? So just technically, what do you like?
Really, I'm kind of all over the place with that stuff. I don't really go in set in my mind thinking like, hey, this is what I'm going to use, or I'm only going to do this. I kind of let the image, the person I'm creating the art for, or the audience speak to me. And a lot of times I'll pray over my artwork or spend time in meditation, really just thinking about what this art piece is going to be used for, and try to create something then. And then once I find the what I'm working on, the materials I'm working with, whether it's canvas, wall, or whatever, sometimes that will dictate what I use. And time. If I have a lot of time, I'll sit down and use acrylics or some oils and spend time on it. If I'm working short, real quick time frame, I might use watercolor, gouache, inks, stuff like that on paper. And if I want to just get crazy with it, I'll just use spray paint on anything, man. I use that stuff for everything, so I love working in it, and that's my creative process through it.
So do you look up to any artists outside of the one you had mentioned, your friend growing up? Are there artists sort of in other communities, bigger cities, maybe more well-known artists that you look up to or you're inspired by?
Yeah, I'm definitely inspired by all the artists that are creating street art, is what they call it, murals, stuff like that around. Some of my biggest influence are like Tristan Eaton, Human, Arise from Spain, different artists all over, Sainer from Mexico. Some of these guys just around the world are creating just beautiful, beautiful works of art, and the goals and aspirations is to be there one day, and that's where I really push myself. I'm really motivated by what they're doing, how they're affecting communities. Another guy that's a really big influence is, if you look him up on Instagram, B Mike 2C, what he's doing in Louisiana in the South with the community, creating the social awareness and working with children and the youth in those areas, that's really special to me, man. And that's my goal for what I do with my artwork, and to maybe do the same thing or be a light in these children's life now. So
Nice.
yeah.
So when you're creating a piece of art, you've heard it before, I'm sure, that people consider art as a form of therapy and it's sort of meditative, right? So especially when you're doing these bigger pieces, do you ever zone out and just think about stuff? And if so, where does your mind go when you're creating these pieces?
When I'm creating the bigger pieces, usually my mind is just thinking of that piece and what's going to be the next step, or what looks better, what colors to use, what I can change, what that looks like. When I'm creating, I rarely zone out. I'm usually always aware of what I'm doing, and what brushstroke I'm putting where, or what color I'm putting in a certain place. I tend to be real critical on my own work, and I'm always thinking about what that piece is, or what it's going to represent, or how it needs to look. And I tend to kind of try to be a perfectionist, even though I'm not, and I just nitpick everything I'm doing. So I wish I could just zone out and just paint something without criticizing myself, but it's so hard to do that, man.
Right.
I'm always looking for something better. So
Awesome. So what do you think of the state of art in the San Joaquin Valley?
that's a interesting question. I don't know that I'm qualified enough to speak on all the art in the valley. I know that I'm qualified to speak on my own community, and I know that I want to see more art in the community. I want to see more murals on buildings, storefronts. I want to see more children being involved and bringing it back to, sign painting, lettering on the side of buildings, and doing stuff like this, having a community outreaches, and doing things with the youth and teaching them how to paint, teaching them how to voice their concerns or things that are important to them through art in their own communities, in the schools, like I said, stores, walls that are available. I like to see more of that. As far as the entire valley, that's really hard to say. I really don't travel much out of the valley other than to the big cities and go check out stuff and see what's going on over there. I kind of just stay in Fresno and work in there. And yeah, man, I would hope that the state of the art in the valley is my goal or my dream is that it would just continue to grow. That everybody in every community would get fired up about stuff and just go paint and just create art everywhere and give everybody a voice to create art who, is interested in it or wants to do it. I pray that the funds are there, that the people are there willing to work with the children. And yeah, that's how I see it, and I'm hoping I see more of it soon.
So Pablo Picasso said, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how you remain an artist once you grow up." So what does this quote mean to you, and how do you interpret that?
That quote, I've heard that quote quite a few times, and that quote has always been parallel to me in what Jesus says in the Gospels about unless we're like the children, we can never see the kingdom of heaven. So that quote kind of hits me in two places, spiritually and physically, and so, or psychologically. So when I think about art, it is important to remain childlike in your art. I think a lot of time as artists, we get too bogged down with things being a certain way or having to look a certain way, or artworks being near perfection. And I think what Picasso really showed, that your artwork can just be an expression, and just let it be an expression. And it's almost like a childlike faith in your art. You kind of just have to create and be okay with what you create and stand behind your work and just be fine with who you are or what your voice is in your art, and just let it be. It doesn't have to look like somebody else's. It doesn't have to be, the best thing out there. It just has to be you. And as long as you're authentic in that, and I think that you can create awesome stuff and be an awesome person to some of the people around you.
So that's it for my questions. Is there anything I missed or you want to touch on? Is there anything you'd like to say to people watching?
Yeah, be a good person, inspire your community, go out and create change. That's all I want to tell people watching.
And what's the best way to reach you on your social media? Do you have
Instagram, Arturo's Walk. You can hit me up, email me, SanchezArturo777@gmail.com. In the works of working a website, getting a logo done professionally, and really pushing this art thing to the next level. So look out for that soon.
Awesome. Arturo, thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.